China was one of those places that you go to, and while you're in it, you're completely overwhelmed by it. I mean, everything. I'm sure our conversations have demonstrated that everything from language, to accommodations, to meeting people and getting around, everything in China was challenging and an adventure, and required some adrenaline to get going. And you leave it, and almost immediately, I'd say 2 days after leaving China, every member of my family has voiced at some point how much they enjoyed China and how they'd like to go back. So it really was just 30 days of highlights, from the Forbidden City and the Great Wall and sort of those iconic things, right down to little things. We visited an orphanage as part of a stay. I'm working on this trip, so as a travel writer, I'm going into different facilities and different hotels and what have you, and drafting stories. And one of the companies that I've been working with is Four Seasons Hotels. So we went to the Four Seasons Shanghai, which has a connection with an orphanage in Shanghai for kids who have mental and physical disabilities. So it's a lot of kids with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. Some of them actually are just slow learners. That they're age 2 to 3, the kids that we dealt with, and they just aren't mentally where they should be. So they're sort of being watched. But these are all wards of the state or of the country. And just that, was a highlight in a completely different way. Watching my family interact with these kids and just provide some basic things. We served them lunch, literally fed them lunch. A lot of them can't feed themselves. Almost all of them couldn't feed themselves. And my kids just sort of played, peekaboo, and made them laugh. And the famous, I'll drop it, you pick it up, I'll drop it again, you pick it up. We did that. Things that were, what language you spoke was irrelevant. The kids just got to interact with them. So there were highlights all across this trip. And China was just amazing on every level.
You tackled a lot of challenges, as you mentioned, language being one of them. What would you say that you learned about your children in that trip to China?
You cannot ever underestimate children. And you can't, they continually surprise me. You cannot, you think that you're able to prepare them, that you're going to, as their parent, guide them and, show them the way, sort of thing. And every time, I end up turned around and flipped over, and they've completely taken control of the situation and handled it better than I could have ever expected. These kids are unfazable. So even with that experience at the orphanage, just, going in, I tried to explain to them what cerebral palsy was. I was led to believe that all the children had cerebral palsy, which wasn't the case. But I explained to them what cerebral palsy was. I tried to describe for them sort of what they would see physically in people who have cerebral palsy, so that I wanted to sort of take away the unknown for them. I didn't want them to go into that and be shocked by it or unable to do anything in there because they were so fascinated by the fact that maybe the bodies didn't look the same or something like that. And so I gave them this big speech about cerebral palsy, and we go in there, and very few of these children that we dealt with actually had cerebral palsy. A lot of them had Down syndrome or, like I say, learning disabilities. My guys could care less. Like, it had nothing to do with their physical limitations or their inability to communicate. I mean, you've got to think, my kids have been in China for almost 30 days at this point, and they've had an inability to communicate for most of that time. So meeting a bunch of kids who similarly couldn't communicate what they wanted or needed, just didn't faze them. They just found other ways to get by. And so, Cameron, who's 6, almost 7, and loves to sort of play big brother, was feeding some of the younger kids, and both of them were playing peekaboo. And it was just wonderful to watch these guys teach me, again, about how little difference matters to them, and really how easy it is to find similarity anywhere.
Now, speaking of difference, you guys are on to a whole different world in Australia. What are some of the highlights so far?
English. Major highlight for us. English with an accent. we're learning a few words. Cameron has dropped his ni haos, and we're now all about g'day mate and see you mate, you know, and shrimps on Barbies and all of that. We have not yet had a shrimp on the Barbie. We have seen no Foster's beer. We have not seen a kookaburra. No one has sang Waltzing Matilda. It's like all of the information that we thought we had about Australia growing up has proven to be not true. But what we do have is just a beautiful city. We've explored it in 3 spaces now. We landed in Bondi Beach. I've learned it's Bondi, not Bondi. I may have got that wrong again. But we landed in Bondi Beach. We spent a couple days there, so we saw that sort of side of it, which was gorgeous. And then we moved into a neighborhood. We stayed with At Roomarama. It's a company that offers apartment stays, and they connect you with apartment owners, and then you rent out their place for a few days or a week or what have you. So we spent a few days at an apartment in Woolloomooloo. It's hard to know how to say that, but it has more O's than you can imagine. And we were in a neighborhood which was awesome. We went to the Woolworths here. We call it the Woolies, and we bought groceries, and I burned dinner, and you know, we just had a normal existence for a little while, which was really, really great. And it made us all feel, I think, reminded us of what it's like to, you know, cook dinner and watch TV, and you read your book on the couch while I'm doing my thing at the desk, and it was just kind of a nice experience. And then we've moved now into, again, at the Four Seasons for a couple of nights. We're doing, again, more stories here. And then we're moving on to the Gold Coast up north. So we'll get some more beach time and a little more sun. It's kind of cool here. Before moving on to New Zealand in a couple of weeks.
Wow. Anybody homesick in the Davis family?
No. We were just talking about that this morning. No one is sort of missing home itself or even the routines of home. I think what we do miss, we miss family and friends. It's tough to be away and know that you can't sort of communicate with your family and friends in the same way that you would. I know we Skype with my parents all the time so that the grandparents can have that relationship, but I know that my mother would give her right foot to be able to give them a hug and a squeeze and a kiss. And so it's hard to sort of watch that continue. But no, we're not really homesick. If anything, we're sort of leaning the other way and thinking, you know, how great an experience is this? And wouldn't it be great to do it again in a few years? So who knows? We know we will be coming home. If you're listening, Mom, we will be coming home, you know, on the scheduled time. But yeah, no one is overly homesick. Home is where we are, right? We're with the people who matter most. And really, what has been really interesting to me is that we've spent 300, well, so far we spent almost 100 days together. And no one is really each other sick either. You know, we've all sort of had a few moments of like, I'd like to be alone. And the kids I've questioned them about, you know, listen, you're with Mom and Dad all the time. Do you want to do something else? Should I check you into some sort of childcare thing? You know, do you want to be without us? And no, the more time we spend with them, the more time they want to spend with us, which I know won't last forever. And yeah, we're trying to make the most of it.